Welcome to Can Angels Fly, Tarot, and more. My name is Nancy, and today I'm here to have a discussion, and it is about subject matters that I don't know much about. However, I like to record, I'll say, the downloads or the information that I receive in order to help me to, how can I say, categorize or, um, just kind of put some order to my thoughts. Hi, Queen. How are you? And I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Actually, it's a wonderful day. It's nice outside. It's calm. It's still. It's peaceful. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So I'm very appreciative of today's energy. And I hope all is well with you, as well as any other person that comes into my life. Hope all is well. And I see where I was supposed to come on about 1 o'clock, um, but I got into something else. And I see how Susan has been here and probably is gone now. But hi, Susan. I see your message. And the same to you. Blessings to you. Hopefully you make it in here. Um, and so, what was I talking about? I was talking about what this live is about. This live is just a discussion that offers me the opportunity to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, the information that I have been picking up, um, things that may not be obvious to us. And it is relative, as you can see, basically to the ascension and comprehension or consciousness is the, I guess I could say, the ultimate goal to the ascension process. And so I'll try to make it make sense. Again, this is not this information, this discussion is not something that I'm very clear on. It's just that I receive a lot of information, label, a lot of downloads um, about a lot of different information, and I can't possibly just contain it all in my mind. And so I use YouTube and live and being able to record as well as to talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, to help me process all the information that I get, and as well as to get feedback from you, ladies and gentlemen, because I want to know what you know, because your experiences probably differ from mine, as well as to um, um, again share what I know with you, ladies and gentlemen, in order to keep you abreast. And so in this particular live stream, I may seem like I'm rambling a lot, reaching a lot, and the truth of the matter is that I, in some way, am. Again, what I'm about to talk about in this live stream are downloads, and it's downloads from different time periods. It's downloads about different information, and so I try to just kind of summarize it with this layout you see beside me. And so basically the guide for this live stream will be primarily this layout you see. But before we move forward, I like to submit my personal plugs. Again, my name is Nancy, and this channel, my channel is Can Angels Fly Tarot and more. I am a professional tarot reader, but I'm also so much more, and I explore so many different aspects of this life in order to get an understanding about what's really going on. The next thing is that if you're ever interested in ordering your own personal tarot reading, just contact me. Hi, Dr. Princess. Um, by email. My email is canangelsfly1@gmail.com. And the next thing I like to ask is for you to what? Like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Once you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell. It increases your chances of being notified whenever I go live. And one more thing, if you're ever interested in offering me financial support, feel free to locate my PayPal me link and Cash App me link below this live stream or any video I make. So back to you, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing, Dr. Princess? What's going on in your world? What's going on in your world? I think I'd have shared all the preliminary information I need to share before I start this. Basically a recording of my downloads, basically. So, yesterday I discovered a new channel, and it's an astrologer. Well, I found quite a few astrologers now that I follow. Um, One person, her what was her name? Her name was True Brilliance. True Brilliance. And so she went live. I think it was yesterday or the day before. She went live, and so I saw the little live thing on the side, and I clicked on her. I had seen her before, but I had never subscribed to her. And so when she went live, I clicked on it. I didn't know it was her, but when I got there, I was like, "Oh, I done seen her before." And she was just talking to her subscribers and things like that. And she was just looking at the astrological alignments for the upcoming year. Not in detail, just looking to see, get a basic understanding about what's going on. And so she was like, "Oh my God, January next year is going to be something else. It's going to be a lot going on." But I don't think she had, again, went into detail and deciphered it and all that kind of stuff. And so when she said it, the serious look on her face, I was like, "Oh, she's serious," And she started citing everything that she was seeing about the various lunar eclipse, the solar eclipse, Mercury retrograde. She said Mars was going in retrograde at some point in time early next year. And so all these things that she was citing, and I was like, whoa. And she was talking about a stellium, that was going to happen in January. So I was like, oh my God. Right now I'm talking about astrological energies. And so I was like, well, maybe I need to take time and kind of jump a few months, because I just take 1 month at a time. Remember, when you're dealing with astrology, you can go on and on forever. It does go on and on forever. And so you have to pace yourself. You got to choose your battles wisely, because you will you will be engulfed in it, because the energies, life just keeps moving and unraveling, and it's this, I don't know, dimensional figure that is always growing. And so a person would have to be obsessed to continue to follow along every single step, the way I see it. And so she helped me choose and select a battle to partake in, and that was to start looking into next year's astrology. So I jumped from looking at our current or September's astrology to January's astrology. Let me stop. Working on my projects step at a time, I know you got to do it one step at a time in order not to get overwhelmed. Good luck and staying positive. That's all that can be asked. That's all that can be asked. So stay positive and keep it moving, doing the best you can. That's all we can do. And so, remember, this is it does have, I'll say, gems, GEMS, in it. This video does. But it's more of a rant or a recording of my findings and what I have been offered as far as labeled downloads. So, girl, my psychiatrist be asking me what's happening with the planets. I'm like, I don't know. See, our world is definitely changing. See, that means you got to get informed so that you can, offer the therapist some assistance. Mm-hmm. Give an exchange. Fair exchange ain't no robbery. That is too funny. I had a therapist that was like that. I was like, who's the therapist here? Is it me or is it her? And so it just depended on what session, who was the patient. I was like, okay. And I tell you, people look down on psychiatric or behavioral help, getting behavioral help or assistance. And I think it's a positive. I think of myself as like a wealthy person reclining. You should see me. I'll be reclining back on the couch, talking. I assist my therapist as well, and I share and everything. Girl, I think it's a wonderful tool that we have here in this physical realm. It allows us to speak openly and freely to a person that, based on the dynamics, cannot or are not legally supposed to, share what we share in private. Because it be things we want to talk about. We be wanting to talk about folk. We be wanting to really say how we feel about ourselves. But these are things we can't do in our day-to-day life. But a therapist also offers us that opportunity to do that. And so I was just saying that I do believe psychiatry and behavioral treatment, it can be a positive experience. And also, what a lot of people um, fail to see, but me and you recognize, Dr. Princess, is that those therapists and those psychiatrists and things like that are mere people too. And many of them have therapists and psychiatrists as well. Because they need to talk about folk behind their back too in the most appropriate manner. Oh, but that is so funny. And I've known some therapists that have some major emotional and psychological issues that end up even manifesting into their physical health. And they would laugh about it like, I'm supposed to be the therapist and I need help. So sometimes we take things, just too seriously. Back to um, this live stream and how it will be constructed. We will be riding the wave here, and I'll be sharing, and you feel free to share. Again, this is an opportunity for me to record my thoughts and my findings and my understanding. And I'm sure will play into future um, videos or topics, I'll say that. And say, I'm studying them though. I just am not that fluent myself to be advising people, but I did get the urge to study the planets via download before I knew about downloads. See, see these labels, downloads is a label. It's a label, and so now we have a label, so we all understand what the other next person is talking about. So when you say download, I get it. When I say download, you get it. And so we got to bring the therapist on board too, so they'll know what we're talking about. Oh, okay, so again, we're building a language. We're building a language, a vocabulary to the conscious, I guess, community. Uh, Building a vocabulary for the conscious community, so we clearly understand what we're saying. So we're growing. So what you see as far as the outline is that you see over here, this is the chakra chart, or and the various chakra wheels. And I didn't write them down, but I think this is the root chakra. I can't remember. One is the sacral, and then I know the next one, heart, throat. I don't know their scientific names or spiritual names. I know it's the throat, the heart, the green one, the throat chakra, the third eye, and this is the crown chakra, the highest level of consciousness. This is what bridges us to divinity. Oh, I'm funny. Look, I don't even be trying. It's just that I gotta laugh to keep from crying sometime in life. And so if you pay attention that I have this basic traditional chakra chart corresponding with the subject matters that I'm going to cover. The ultimate objective or the end game for this particular live stream is to get us to understand the existence of consciousness. This attempt to get us to understand again the consciousness and what it really is. The things that we're going to cover can be psychologically destabilizing. You may need a psychiatrist or therapist after this one, as it is my attempt to deal with the metaphysical using physical language. This is going to be complicated, so I ask you to be patient and understand that we are literally riding a wave. And I haven't received the final understanding on neither of these areas that we'll be discussing. Not only is the contents of what we will, some of what we'll talk about today, be uh, emotionally, mentally, mostly psychologically destabilizing. It can also become confusing. It can lead to um, how like a disassociative type of experience. That's what I talk about the mental um, possibly mental instability. And I'll try to make it make sense. I'll try. So I'm gonna just dive off in here so we can start riding a wave. And we're gonna start at the very bottom over here. And as you can see, if you can see it, I try to make it big enough. It says release the root. Again, I don't have an outline. I'm just recording, sharing, categorizing or cataloging the information that I have received through all of my works, including downloads. And this is one of the areas that we will cover. And I've entitled it Release the Root. What do I mean when I say release the root? Um, I gotta stop because it's possible for me to get confused as well. And so I need to um, restate the purpose of this discussion. It is to ultimately come to understand or to see consciousness, understand it. We're dealing in the metaphysical. And ascension is like the comprehension of consciousness. Again, this is a complex area we're dealing with today. This is advanced. You know, we ain't never got advanced. We're trying to get advanced now. And so, in order to ascend, we must be able to comprehend consciousness. That's the end goal. That's the end goal. But we're starting from somewhere. And where are we starting from? We're starting from here, from the root. This red chakra down here, the root chakra. And the root chakra is what anchors us, grounds us into this physical, worldly um, existence. The root chakra, I know, corresponds with basic survival, um, like sexual urges, you know, reproduction. It is how do you survive in this physical world is embodied with this, with the root chakra. And to release the root chakra is what we will do, ultimately, what we must do in order to truly ascend, in order to truly be able to embrace consciousness. Again, this is going to be a complex uh, area. We're really diving into the metaphysical world today. And it may not make sense at all. Hopefully you get something out of this live stream. But it probably won't, it might not make sense at all because it's more than our current consciousness will allow us to perceive. So back to releasing the root. What do I mean? To release the root talks about the moment uh, that will come eventually for all of us, in which we have to release our bodies. We got to let it go. It's the period where the spirit, the soul are separated from the physical body, from this vessel. But it goes deeper because it's just not about, um, you know, our soul essence being bound to this physical body. It is the impression upon our spirit and soul while it's in this physical body. And what do I mean? I mean, there is, I'll say, the mind, M-I-N-D. I'm not talking about your stereotypical mundane mind, the way you think from day to day. Um, I'm talking about more in relationship to the mind that leads your body to know when to breathe, how to breathe, makes it understand how to see, how to taste, how to discern between taste, and different things like that. It tells you your heart to beat. It tells your digestive system what to do. That mind, that more divine mind. Now, that divine mind, too, is impacted by our physical experience. And how can I articulate this? That a person can get so attached to this physical experience that not even on that metaphysical level they want to let go. And that's where we begin to really experience the hell state, an eternal burning. It is eternal burning at that state because there's no physical body that can interact in this physical world to try to pacify those urges and longings. Hi, Emily. But I'm going to stop there because that's not really what I want to talk about, but it all goes together. Releasing the root. So we know the time comes that we must separate. It's that separation that I want to talk about because there's some complexities that exist in that separation. Well, I just talked about one. It is the conscious releasing of this physical world so that you don't take that memory with you on your soul journey. And it stops you, it snags you, and you can't move no further. Because what? You're attached to the memory of love. You're attached to the memory of passion. You are attached to the memory of the pacification of your desires. It can hold you. We talked about that. Releasing the root. Why is it complicated? Remember, we're dealing with more metaphysical things here. And so it's hard to articulate with real physical words. But an example is our bodies are a part of this self-contained ecosystem. So it knows how to function. It has a level of intelligence. It has its own level of consciousness, its own level of awareness. It flies on autopilot. But the true moment in which our essence, that includes that divine knowing that runs the body, separates from the physical vessel, there's a state of panic. A state of panic. And the panic is of the ego person, the physical person, the physical mind. As when this is deep, loving it. Okay, it's about to get deeper. We dealing in metaphysics. You got to be ready to ride. You might take a break from this one because it's going to be deep. Lord have mercy. I hope I can make it through, but I must record. And so that separation, that splicing of spirit away from the physical vessel causes the physical vessel to go into a state of panic. Imagine a person that is transitioning from life to death. This is just an example. And in the moment, like a person's lungs fail to work. Remember, those lungs function on autopilot. So when the lungs start to go in and out of working, there's a panic in the physical body because the physical body itself does not know how to make the lungs work. Your ego, no matter what it does, no matter what it taps into, does not know how to make those lungs work. The same stands true if the heart stops. It is the divine mind that keeps the heart pumping at its appropriate rhythm, you know. And if the heart fails to pump, the physical body, the ego, and all that it consists of has no idea or no awareness how to make the heart pump. That is the true releasing of the root. Now, I'm going real deep again. As you can see, this in some parts of this live stream, it's going to be kind of referring to the end of life, or the end of the physical existence. And right now, I can't make it make sense to you why this is the appropriate time to cover these topics. Maybe at the end, I will. It just depends on if I remember to cover everything. And I do project that this will be a considerably long video. It seems like I just don't have it in me to make short videos. So what the hell? Please like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. And so we just talked a little bit about what it means to release the root. That separation and that relationship, that what they people symbiotic, another label, relationship between the physical and the spirit, and the panic that exists on the side of the physical self or the ego. But that process is necessary in order to compel us to ascend, in order to understand, in order to partake in consciousness. But we ain't up there yet. So there's other things that I could speak about relative to this level. Maybe I'll remember and come back. But we're going to move up. The next thing I've been talking about is the highest expression of Capricorn. And I've talked about the highest expression of Capricorn in my astrological interpretation live streams. I just did one. I did one for September and also did one for this month of August. And we're starting to dive deeper and deeper into astrology based on my level of understanding. Remember, I'm just an amateur astrologer. But I got some fundamental information down packed that you can learn from me and you can take and run with it. This is one of the fundamental understandings that I got. The highest expression of Capricorn. Now that video that I made for September is 4 hours long, so I know not many of you watched it. So I'm going to talk about what do I mean by the highest expression of Capricorn, and how the highest expression of Capricorn helps to compel us to ascension, so that we can actually come to experience consciousness. The sign of Capricorn symbol is the mountain goat. The actual symbol of Capricorn, the mountain goat or the glyph, actually it has 3 parts to it. And the 3 parts are, I'll talk about the center part first, the goat and its hoofs and things like that. The mountain goat is an example or archetype for a particular type of man, woman, human being. This particular type of person is simple. I'll say simple. I like the word simple. As they depend on this root chakra energy to compel them to move forward in life in order to satisfy their earthly and worldly requirements, like for food, for love, and things like that. This particular type of person rides the energy of intuition and instinct. And instinct, they depend on their instincts. They got to be in sync. They got to be paying attention. They're so simple. It's not complex. It's not like the next part of Capricorn, we're going to talk about the frontal part where it's a man face with some horns. It's not like that. Because this frontal part of Capricorn, the man with the horns, it represents to me this entrepreneur. This is a person or a type of a person that has grown in their level of awareness about this physical world and all that it consists of and all of its treasures. That this particular type of person has come to understand like the nature of man. This kind of person understands the power of possessing the riches and treasures of this earth. They understand how to use the riches and treasures of this earth in order to uplift or to suppress. And so this person's works are very intentional. And many of them will do anything necessary in order to ensure not only their survival, their basic needs, but they will do whatever it takes in order to achieve a particular career goal, to move forward on their own personal ambition. They will do whatever it takes in order to, have a particular reputation or level of social influence. I call them, again, entrepreneur. Let me stop. It says, my son is a Capricorn. His first word was goat. Stop it. Stop it. Just saying. It may not relate to what you think about. Look, but that's interesting. That is wow. Your Jupiter is in Capricorn, so it promises growth. What I'm talking about now. And so the final phase of Capricorn is the phase in which that all human beings are being inspired to rise to. But most of us aren't there. That's why we aren't ascendant. And the final phase of Capricorn is the rear end, which is the sea goat's tail, the fish's tail. Big, fancy, beautiful tail. And what that represents relative to the Capricornian energy is those people that eventually, in the course of their life, they come to understand that their works in this world have an impact upon them, not only in the physical, but also in the spirit. Not only does it impact them, it also impacts everybody outside of themselves, both on a physical level and a spiritual level. So this particular type of person is very conscious about the works that they do, about the careers that they do, and therefore about the works that they contribute into the world. They're very conscious. There are only particular works that a person would do, and those works will be beneficial to themselves as well as any other person in humanity on a physical level and a soul level. That's what we are inspired by divinity to achieve, that highest level or the highest expression of Capricorn. We must do so while in this physical world, while rooted in the temptation, in order to ascend so that we can truly experience consciousness. I don't know if that makes sense. Y'all let me know. Again, this is a very complex subject matter. And it has many, many parts and many, many layers. Primarily, we are not dealing truly in the physical, but we are dealing with the metaphysical. You just got to be able to pull the metaphysical contents out of these physical words. We talked about the release of the root, and that I say traumatic or that trauma that occurs to the physical when it is released from divinity. We just talked about the Capricornian energy and the three different types or expressions of Capricorn. We came to understand that we are being inspired by divinity to rise to the highest expression of Capricorn. Understanding our works here do matter, and our works help to create our future experiences. Either our future experiences will further ground us and root us in the root into the earth, into physicality, or our works will release us and help us ascend so that we can do what? Truly experience consciousness. Moving on up. Moving on up to the east side. Anyway, I'm a little goofy sometimes, y'all. The next thing I want to talk about is pure, unconditional intention. What do I mean by pure, unconditional intention? What must we accomplish relative to pure, unconditional intention in order to ascend so that we can truly experience consciousness? The pure, unconditional intention it goes back into the highest expression of Capricorn. Doing what you must because it is, here's where it's getting complicated. It is a particular, I'll say, conscious state. I don't know how I'm going to transition this. It is a particular conscious state to be unconditional in what you do. Now, the highest expression of Capricorn here in this physical world does have some conditions. That's why it's still grounded here in this physical world. But yet, it has, I'll say, ascended that energy to the extremity of our realm. The highest expression of Capricorn is on the border of physicality in heaven, the highest expression of Capricorn. And so it's conditional. But then there is that level right outside of physicality or our reality. And it is where the unconditional begins to exist, that level of consciousness. One becomes aware, conscious of pure, unconditional intent. Let me try to use physical words for metaphysical things. Intent. Intent is so primal. It is so physical. It is so earthly and worldly. So how can I use that same term when I start talking about metaphysics or spirituality? Because we're starting to rise in the dimensions. It is this energy that I can best describe as you must. And I use that terminology in the last astrological report for September. The consciousness of unconditionality, I think is a word, is a must. It is a must. It has no explanation. It just is what it is. You must do this. You must perform the works because it is the essence of this level of consciousness. Trying to overcome the complexities of dealing with the metaphysics. And what are we doing? We're seeing what must really take place in order to allow us to ascend. In order to be able to, again, to comprehend consciousness. We are conscious of this root. You are conscious that you got to eat. You are conscious that you need a roof over your head. You are conscious of that. You are conscious that your works matter. relative to if you're going to eat or not or have a roof over your head. That's the lower vibration of one's consciousness. But consciousness resides in many dimensions. And so the complexity that exists in this discussion is that I am attempting to talk about the consciousness in the lower vibrational realm, and I'm also trying to talk about the consciousness that you can't see in more of the high vibrational realms, or the realms that boundaries begin to expand and move out. So let me stop and read. Dr. Prince says, my intention is with the protection of the animal kingdom. I remember you shared that. Friends can't understand why I care, but I have to do it. Period. So you get that. Dr. Prince has just offered an excellent example as I try to explain pure, unconditional intent. Remember, there are two parts to this level of consciousness. There is the more worldly consciousness, because you're grounded here, because you're in the physical, and because you're susceptible to the human condition and all that exists in this realm. So it's not truly unconditional. But the highest expression of the pure, unconditional intent is when a person is not controlled or regulated by being in the human condition, or susceptible to the human condition, or susceptible or subjected, I'll say, to the rules that govern this reality. And so Dr. Princess has offered us an example of the pure unconditional intent relative to her life. And so I read again. She says, my intention is with the protection of the animal kingdom, is what she shares. She says, friends cannot understand why I care, but I have to do it, period. And that is on the physical plane, still rooted in this world. But it's that part where she says, I have to do it, period. It is a must. And that is the pure unconditional intent. And it is hard to articulate its highest expression, or more spiritual or metaphysical essence, as it is the all-encompassing, I'm going to try one more time, consciousness that, like animals too need to eat and breathe. And so it's a consciousness that takes care of them. It's a consciousness that makes sure they eat, and that they breathe, and that they sleep, and that they have land. And that consciousness, that's all it cares about. It is nothing else. It is pure. It is unconditional intent. Hope it made that sense. Now, thank you, Dr. Princess. Now, at this point in time, I'm about to read Queen Design's comment, and then we're going to move up the ladder to the next area that we'll be talking about. Okay, Queen Design, could it be also overcoming your fear? That's the root. Anytime you got to overcome the fear, or you got to release, and it's painful and it's difficult to the physical, but the soul is not interested in that. That's the root. I told my son to do something that he is scared to do, but he does it because he needs to, and he know he need to do it. That's still, I would have to think on that, but the basic seems to be is still a root issue. It's a root issue, because the root always has us linked in or anchored into the physical world, and we are afraid to release the physical world because of the discomfort, even though we must do it. See, that is a part of ascending, taking ourselves to our highest expression, that kind of things, or our higher selves. A great question. Thank you for posing your question and sharing with us, Queen Design. And so now we're going to move up. Remember, I don't have, I, this is the outline. I don't have any notes. I got a couple, actually, it's that here. Notes. I'm just trying to record all the information I've been receiving through my works, whether my works have been tarot, whether it's been studying astrology, or it's just been some download that has occurred to me. This is where the accumulative information has led me to understand that I must go in order to um, it's the next step is what I can say. It's the next step. You're welcome. It's the next step in our understanding, because we must be able to comprehend what is taking place at this point in time in humanity, so that we can ultimately do what? Ascend. But we first we have to be able to comprehend. And so let me stop, because I got to put my personal plugs in here. Again, welcome to Can Angels Fly Tarot and More. My name is Nancy. I'm an amateur astrologer, professional tarot reader. So if you're ever interested in ordering your own personal tarot reading, just contact me at my email. My email is canangelsfly1@gmail.com. I ask you to like, share, and if you haven't already subscribed, once you subscribe, tap the bell. You might be notified whenever I go live. And if you really want to support me, you want to offer me a love offering, or what is it, financial support, feel free to do so at your discretion. And you can do so by looking below this live stream or any video I make for my PayPal me link, or what? Cash App me link. Thank you. Now, on to the next level. The next thing that you see here is do unto others. You know that old saying. It says, do unto others as you will have them do unto you. Now, how is that relative to us ascending in order for us to really partake in consciousness? Well, this is interesting. I gotta stop. I'm looking over here. I just looked over here. I have 3 people watching me live in the middle of the day. It is so interesting that my view count during a live, no matter what time, never exceeds 3 people. The probability, natural probability of that occurring on a basically open platform, I can say is very low. As people's curiosity, curiosity killed a cat, would lead more people to come in order to see what's going on, even if it wasn't their thing and they left out. I find that so interesting. And so I understand from that, because it's been ongoing, that it's intentional. Okay. Anyway, back to the message. Must record it, must catalog it, categorize it, catalog it. Okay. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you. How is that significant? Now, at this point, I want to talk about humans. And I'm playing on words as well, because I'm not just talking about HUMANS. I'm talking about HUEMANS. All these diversity of people, the different genders and different things like that, the different cultures, that array, that spray of difference or diversity or color or whatever, religious practices, well, just different occultic practices and rituals and things like that. We all reside here in this physical realm. We cohabitate here. This planet, when we look at it, it seems very large. But if you think of this planet as like a home, on this home, they say, it's been reported, that there are over 7.5 billion, up to 8 billion people in this home, on this planet. And that is not just by chance. As each person that we interact with day to day in the course of our life or any given time in our lives is there to be like a trigger, a spark to a fire that helps to refine us so that we can do what? Ascend. These triggers. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How does that relate? Knowing there's up to 8 billion people in this world. Okay. How does it relate? Remember, these are downloads that I received. We can make it easy for humanity to ascend by what? Embodying the highest expression of Capricorn is one of the ways. Because if we embody the highest expression of Capricorn, it alleviates a lot of our concerns about those root chakra issues. We can make it easy on each other in this ascension process at any given time in the history or existence of humanity. But the truth of the matter, we don't. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I guess I can maybe offer some examples to try to talk about something that, again, it is what we're actually dealing with is something metaphysical. And I'm trying to put it in physical words. So I'm going to try to give some examples possibly. Let's say a person hits on some hard times in this physical realm, dealing with the root chakra issues of survival, needing food, clothing, some type of emotional or physical support primarily. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So when you encounter this person, out of all other people in the world, when you see them going through that hard time, that challenge, you're supposed to extend yourself to them. Why? Because if the shoe was on the other foot, if it was you that was sitting and facing all those difficulties and challenges, you would like somebody to extend themselves to you. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so when you choose, but many times we don't. That's the problem. We so deeply rooted in the root that we're self-centered, egotistical, narcissistic, and we're just egotistically driven. So most times we don't. But we're supposed to, be our best self. And so a person that extends themselves over to another to offer them some form of assistance to help them through so that they don't fall deeper. They don't get more grounded or more rooted into this physical world. That person is not supposed to boast about the support that they offered or gave. Because if you do, it is counterproductive to the ascension process. Then it's this other side. We can't forget the other side. Where if you are a person that is going through some difficult challenges relative to sustaining the root, and somebody extends themselves to you, they allow themselves to be vulnerable to you. They open their world up to you. Because they understand that if they were in that position, they would like somebody to do the same for them. So they do unto others as they would have, they do unto another as they would want done to themselves. And they extend themselves over to you. That person that is the recipient of some form of support, help, or aid. You are responsible for not taking advantage of that support. You are responsible for using that support to help you come back or rebound from the challenges that you face relative to the root. It was something else I wanted to say. I'm not supposed to forget to say. I'll say that. Oh, and it says, this is what I wrote, because this is what I heard roughly. I was going to sleep. I was going to sit up all night listening to this information. But it said, if grace and mercy is granted in times of trouble, do not abuse the generosity. Then I told it, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep. And we're talking about, remember, getting in touch and in tune with consciousness. This is a level of consciousness. People have lost this basic level of awareness. And the awareness is to what? Understand that you are equally responsible for the next person as they are for you in this physical world. And that the consciousness is that those works, even though we know cannot be purely unconditional because they're rooted in physicality, they still can be executed through the highest physical expression of Capricorn. Understanding one's works has an impact upon themselves as well as their soul. Not only that, it has an impact on another outside of oneself as well as their soul. And to understand that the works must be done in order to ensure humanity's ascension. I hope I made that make sense. And see, but when one has stepped up to the plate and you fall, but no one, but I hear you, assist quietly. Assist quietly. I see my issue. Thanks. Grateful. You are welcome. You're welcome. So, but then it's that other side when somebody help you with something else that it was saying. You understand? Very good. It was another side to the person that gets the support. And I should have listened. I was just ready to go to bed. How much can one person take in? Okay. But I'm going to try to figure it out. I'm trying to pull it. See if it'll talk to me now. See, there's a whole nother video that I can make relative to this do unto others as you will have them do unto you. I'm going to make a whole video. But right now I want to submit this so that I've recorded it so I don't forget. You know, it's the people that need help. It's so many levels to this because there are people that need help that can do better. Then there are those people that can do better, have the potential to do better, but due to unseen or unanticipated life challenges, they ain't doing better. Now, those time periods for such people can be short or they can be very long life challenges. So, see, these are some of the things that comes with the level of consciousness about helping another. Or even accepting support from another. It's a whole level of consciousness that has been lost. It has been distorted. And then, relative to that whole scenario is that there are people in this world that just really can't do no better. And it could be due to their intellectual, being intellectually limited or incapacitated, physically capacitated, something like that. You get what I'm saying? Or it's even a group of people that have been so, we call it, label, indoctrinated into this reality and all of its distortions that they can be deemed mentally ill. They can't see clear, or spiritually confused. They can't see clear. But whatever the case is, those people was something else about them. Us. Is that, number one, when you can, you're supposed to pay it forward. Doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Even on that level. It was something else. It was, what was it? Talk to me. You don't want to talk now? Okay. All right. But I'm gonna let it go because I can't remember. But I do know it had to do. Um, oh, it's like even a person that has been, again, suppressed in some way, and they can't make it happen, and find themselves in need. Um, God dang it, lost that again. They cannot. They also are. They're part of humanity, and also expected to ascend as well. They also have to ascend. So everything that we talk about, I don't care if you at the lowest um, plane of existence, really having difficulty with sustaining or pacifying the root issues, you still are expected to ascend. As negative, low vibrational behaviors, like based in fear, envy, jealousy, those levels. See, it's a level of consciousness that comes if one does not ascend, but stays in that space. Uh, can have a negative impact upon the person that offered the support or any other person that witnesses the scenario. However, it manifests in reality and is um, a negative what's the word? It's counterproductive. It's negative and counterproductive, leading to the adverse effects of what we want. And what we want, what we are inspired to do, is a sin. And therefore, such behavior on the behalf of somebody who is struggling will cause a dissension or a stagnation in the ascension process. I hope I made that make sense. And I'm going to let it go. I think I got that part out. Okay. So, thus far, we've talked about releasing the root. We talked about the height becoming, moving into the highest expression of Capricorn. We talked about the pure unconditional intent, and we've now just finished talking about do unto others as we will have them uh, do unto ourselves. The next thing is climbing the dimensions. Thus far, what we have been doing is climbing the dimensions. And so I'm going to try to explain this, I'll say sub title, this sub topic of climbing the dimensions. What do I mean? Understand, going back to the bottom, to the root, that dimension, the dimension that we sit in, is very low. It is very slow. It is, we can get stuck here. And we get stuck here because it is such a tantalizing place. We can also get stuck here due to fear and pain and desire. But that is a level of consciousness. All that exists relative to the root, all that exists in this physical world, in this plane, is consciousness. It's a particular space of consciousness. And this space of consciousness has perimeters, boundaries. And all that you see around and about you, all that you hear, you experience, you feel, I mean, just everything from sex to food to poverty to wealth to, just everything, illness and all different forms of illness, forms of communication, language, no matter what you can describe about this physical world and this experience and the people, is a space of consciousness. And today, right now, the majority of people that create humanity, extent of their conscious stops there. At the beginning of this live stream, I talked about how, I refound a lady named True Brilliance. She went live yesterday or the day before, and she was talking to her subscribers during her live. And I clicked on it and I tuned in. And she started looking into the next year of 2020, early parts. She looked up to 2020, and she was reporting to her subscribers that were viewing her, hey, we have XY. I think she said we had 6 lunar and solar eclipses when it's usually only 4. She said, oh, her eyes got big. I'm like, oh. I say 6 rather than 4. Okay. She says we have, of course, it always happens, we have Mercury going in retrograde multiple times. People scared of Mercury in retrograde anyway. It's annoying. She talked about how Mars was going retrograde. Now, that ain't something I looked at, because I didn't know Mars went retrograde. I didn't know it slowed up. But I'm going to have to look into that. But based on what she was reporting, Mars, the planet of energy and of power and aggressiveness and intent, goes back retrograde. So the energy diminishes, slows down, or is turned inward, if that's true. She reported about that. Then she reported about this grand stallion that is going to occur in the sign of, what's it? Capricorn. Remember, Capricorn represents our standing structure. All that exists. All the businesses, the organizations, the rules, it's a grand stallion. Meaning there are a whole lot of planets. I think 3 or more stacked up in the same space. And it's like a powder keg of, I'll say, eventful happenings in early 2020. And so she's like, oh, 2020 gonna be something else. She got a little nervous. As an astrologer, she got a little nervous. She said, I ain't looked at it in detail, but I can tell just from those things that 2020 gonna be something to have to contend with. So yesterday, I was like, let me take a look here, because I only go month by month. We just did September. I do some preliminary work here with y'all on YouTube. Then I go do my own personal research that go in more depth. And I'm seeing some stuff. I just made a video, made a video or a live stream, I don't know which was, a few days ago, about maybe close to a week ago, where I talk about a secret message. And I reveal a secret message in that live stream or video that suggests that it is possible that we are moving into a time period in which there will be a Great Depression, greater than the Great Depression of the 1930s. How will your root chakra deal with that? So, behind that report of True Brilliance, I go and just jump ahead to January 2020, and I began to research the opening of the year. And what I can say did come up. I believe that many of you aren't astrologers or that in depth, as far as astrology. You may know some basics, like Dr. Princess may know some basics. But one thing that came up, even if you're not an astrology buff or interested in it, is that the first house, or the ascent, Taurus sits there. And the first house represents predetermined, the commencement, the beginning, the start, the initiation with predetermined life experiences. They begin to unfold relative to Taurus. Taurus talks about your physical, worldly wants, the pacification, the attempt to pacify your physical, worldly wants, needs, desires, your physical 5 senses, the basic requisites for life, having to move forward and having to deal with them, and that being the primary focus in the issue. And so I was like, I'm not going to go into the rest I made some notes, but I'm not going to go into the rest of that. But what will occur in this physical realm next year that's going to spark everybody under this astrological umbrella to have a primary focus and interest on satisfying their root chakra. That's a whole nother video, so I ain't gonna go into it. Because right now we're trying to climb the dimensions. But I bring that up because if we are headed to a Great Depression, be prepared. Be prepared. House, first house. First house. The first you lost, I'm talking about the first house in astrology. I'm talking about January 2020, January 2020, in the first house, it is Taurus. And that alignment suggests something. It suggests that we, the people that create humanity, will, our primary focus, our primary concern will be on our physical well-being. I didn't go into any more detail. I'm going to say that for another video because this information is important and fits into the overall story. It fits in between all I've reported in the past and that which I will report in the future. But right now, it's the time to be aware of these subject matters, climbing the dimensions. So why did I start talking about possible future scenarios? It's because the future scenario seems to include humanity, the individuals that create humanity, having a primary focus on if they're going to be okay or not. And that will incite fear on a spiritual level. And once the fear sets in, it grounds us back into the root. It pulls us back into the earth. It pulls us back into survival mode in all of its consciousness. Let me see. That the root chakra, the root energy, the need to survive in order not to have that discomfort that comes about due to the physical, the spirit being separated from the physical. We don't want that discomfort. So, only choice we have is to survive, to try to keep the spirit in the body, right? That's whole thing, needing to survive, is a form of consciousness. And that particular form of consciousness keeps us rooted in what we now call the third dimension. But remember, humanity is being called to dwell the scene. But what seems to be taking place is going to try to stop us from ascending, anchoring us down in the third dimension. If we can overcome the challenges that are set before us, then we will begin to slowly ascend and therefore experiencing alternate dimensions at our will. Once we move up and deal with the embody the highest expression of Capricorn, the more people that do it, opens up or expands the dimension for all to step into. That dimension, just imagine, 7.5 billion up to 8 billion people truly aware that their works matter and being conscious. But what's the chances of that, y'all? But just ride with me. We're starting to move into this utopia. That is a level of consciousness. That is a whole new dimension. And that level of consciousness has what in it that the root chakra don't have. We know at least one thing, that we become aware that our works have an impact upon us as well as those outside of us. It has an impact upon our physical physicality as well as the state of our soul and therefore our spirit. The root chakra has no awareness of such information. Not at all. So we do understand that we have ascended into a new dimension in which we're getting new information. We also know, based on Dr. Princess, that we also have tapped in like to this next level of pure unconditional intention, because we are aware that there are certain things that must be done, like everyone must eat, and therefore we must allow the earth to do what she needs to do because she must, because it is her. She's divinely appointed to sustain our lives. She must. It is pure. The work of the earth is pure. It's unconditional intent because she must. Let's stop. I'm live. Did you bring something?
What?
The charger you looking for? I have no idea. But I am in need. So what you going to do to satisfy it? And remember, I'm live. Don't make me get off this live. I'm almost done anyway. So, moving forward. So I was talking about climbing the dimensions. The next thing, see, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is another dimension. And in that dimension, there is information. And to tap into that information in that dimension is an example of one's expanding consciousness and aware. What you become aware of on the level of do unto others as you would have them do unto you is not information that is available in all the dimensions below it. It's additional information. It's new information that you can tap into. And once you tap into it, you become aware of it. You become conscious of it. And so you can use that new information to assist you in your ascension. But in those higher dimensions, there's also information there that you can tap into. And if executed, misused, misunderstood, can also be a detrimental force and lead to the dissension process. Or it can also be ignoring it. Can't say you're ignorant to it or that you don't know it. You just won't execute it. Now I have to say this. As you look at this layout, the dimensions most likely are not ordered in this particular hierarchy. Remember, this is just this live is just an opportunity for to record my findings and all that I've done, including downloads. And so I told you in the beginning, I don't have all the information together. I'm just recording, sharing, allowing you to submit any information that you get, that you have received, that may even assist me in, my understanding. And of course, I offer to you. And so what am I saying this for? Because these steps or these dimensions or these levels of consciousness, however you like to label these categories, may not very well be in order. The one thing that I do know is that root chakra is in the right place and the highest expression. But anything above that, I have to wait for more information. But I think you get the idea. So let's go ahead and move forward, because we've been on, I know, here, an hour and 20 minutes. I know my videos and lives are long, but just ride the wave with me. And let's see what we discover together. So we know that we're climbing up through the dimensions, and based on what dimension we are in determines what we are we can be exposed to as far as information. And that potential information, if we partake in it, we can become conscious and aware. We can use that information to help us ascend, or we can allow it. We can use it, misuse it, and allow us to descend. Moving up to the next level over here, which is the dissolving of boundaries. When I say dissolving of boundaries, I'm starting to talk about each of these dimensions that I have been referring to, in which there is a sum of information. There is a unique conglomerate of information. Therefore, that dimension's consciousness, the extremity of its consciousness. Well, there comes this level in which the boundaries of each of those dimensions begins to dissolve. Now, we're truly moving into higher levels of consciousness here, higher levels of metaphysics here. But dissolving the boundaries between these various dimensions in order to rise into, we can say, the higher, more divine planes that are, I call it the void, just black, black as velvet, black velvet, and the darkness exists there because there's so much light. It's the brightest light you've ever seen until the space. It's not even a space because there's no boundaries. It goes black. So much light, it goes black. And reason why there is no, I can't define it as space, trying to use these physical words for metaphysical things. There's no space because on this level, we call it God, the supreme all. It is, as described by, like the book of Enoch, it is immeasurable, unmeasurable, immeasurable. It has no boundaries. It has no limits. It has no name because there was no one there to measure it. It was no one there to name it. It was. It is. It was and always has been and always will be. That without measure and no boundaries is consciousness. This is where all, we'll say, information dwells. This is how everything that we've ever known comes into existence. Everything in our physical realm comes from that, I'll say, library, that immeasurable, infinite, it's no words. There are no boundaries, which says in this realm, this is all you can be conscious of. In this realm, this is all you can be conscious of. And over here, this is all you can be conscious of. And everything below it that's subservient to it or subordinate to it. No. This is all consciousness. This is where all it stems from. And remember, it has no boundaries, no limits. It's completely dark, but yet its light is all encompassing because it is everything. That's what they be talking about God come from. And so we're attempting. Why do I talk about this place as if I know it very well? Again, this is information that is incomplete for me. I'm just sharing. But it appears to me, based on my life, all that I have studied and been involved in and everything, that is where we descended from, and that's where we are expected to ascend back to be absorbed into it. But in order to get to that place where they say you don't never die, because there is Oh, I'll say death is not a focus there. It's over. That's when death, Bible talk about death, Christ overcoming death. That's it. Because death is we lay in there, but it's not powerful enough to do nothing. But down here, we know what death did. We know what it do. It forces us out of our physical shells at an appointed period. But up there, it's just a small morsel of consciousness. Now, being in our form, we're not built to comprehend that level of consciousness. What am I talking about, consciousness? What is consciousness? I guess I got to talk about now before we end this live stream. I'm going another 30 minutes, then I'm getting up out of here. What is consciousness? See, complexity, consciousness, is what information has been offered to you that you can perceive and comprehend, right? We have a limit to our resource of information. I defined it about this world using it as an example. Everything that exists, from every element you can't see, every cell or molecule or electron or neutron, to the flowers, to the cytoplasm, to the carbon, to the everything. That is the information relative to this realm. How to build a house is the information relative to this realm. If you're in this realm, you can tap into this consciousness. Let me say something else. At this point in time, there are higher levels of consciousness that each individual in humanity can tap into. And how do I know that? I know it because you and I are, live right now. I know it because of the internet. I know it because of the 4 and 5G and on to the 6G. I know it now because of infrared and lasers. See, that type of information that has been made manifest in this physical world are from other dimensions. There are people that are in this world that have already ascended and therefore are tapping into other dimensions, other dimensions that contain additional information, or has its, own unique conglomerate of information or consciousness. But many of us are not there. We can, but there are things that we must do in order to ascend to the level. Understanding, because we're in the physical realm, susceptible to the human condition. Part of the human condition is greed, the need for supremacy and things like that. Those that have rose up in various and tapped into various levels of consciousness, which they embody and walk in and out of, and use those morsels. Because you see, once you get the consciousness, you learn the rules or the instructions to create things, right? Well, they use that information that is foreign to us, but becomes the norm to them, and can use, create, and fashion things into this physical world that we don't understand where they come from, like the internet and things like that. And they will use that because they're susceptible to the human condition, to the root, to manipulate anyone else that is subordinate to them. Hope it makes sense. Hi, Alicia. How you doing? Say, we be researching, Angel, what we can't totally get. So you do inspire is to step all the way out the box. Step on out the box. The box ain't got nothing. You probably done scraped all up and down the walls of the box. Ain't no more ice cream left. Get on out. Go find a new box. Thank you. And you give information I'm not aware exists. Exactly. We have to tap into ourselves. that's another thing that we mentioned. Well, we're not talking about tapping into ourselves, because that ourselves is another realm or dimension, and it has its own unique consciousness. And so now we're there, so we learning some stuff. We're going to really um, spark something from within that is going to help us. It's going to help us wake up and to be able to see these alternate dimensions in which we can step in. And I do want to offer an example of how I kind of offered some examples how to step into other dimensions in order to be able to mess around with the information in that dimension, in order to, uh, to have one's mind conscious of more than what it has been conscious of. And most of us, our consciousness is limited and bound to this realm. And so I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Just want to see what Alicia has written over here. It says, I'm cool, had a great holiday at the beach, feel fresh and rejuvenated. Woo, woo. All right. That is so wonderful. And how about the kids? They cool too? They happy? They feeling great? I'm so happy to hear that. Okay. Now, at the top, now we talked about dissolving the boundaries in order to be able to understand that there is an immeasurable consciousness that creates all consciousness. And see, this is a complex place because my mind is limited. It is limited to this realm. It is limited to this physicality. But if I was able to tap into additional information, it would give me an expanded consciousness. And through that expanded consciousness, which is the awareness about new information, I could maybe, example, if I wanted to, just an example, turn myself inside out. Why would I be able to do such a thing? It is because I will understand like the dynamics. See, it's not even defined. I don't even have the terminology, the words, or the vocabulary to define, these realms or these dimensions. Now, what I have to say, part of this live stream that I wanted to offer was my own unique life stories that initiated me into knowing about this stuff. That's going to make the video so much longer. And it also requires me to go into that form of reflective meditation in order to see where I got this information from. But I'm going to give you an example of like where I got the root chakra. And if I can, when I look up the root chakra. The root chakra was the last thing added to me. And you would think that would be the first. Basic, simple. But no, it was just the last thing added to me. About a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that, all of a sudden, my body didn't remember how to perform its voluntary functions of breathing, heartbeat, and this and that. I panicked. This might have been about 3-4 months ago. But in that experience, it told me. What told me? I don't know, divinity. All I heard was. And the reason I was told to, when my body was going through this process, it was just like when I had that dream about visiting the realm below, which was hell, and how I would have been in that experience and didn't even know what was taking place unless something greater than me woke me up and said, pay attention and take a note. I wouldn't have never known I was there to take a note. Same thing happened when I had this physical experience. where my whole body was malfunctioning. And I was about to panic. The panic came because I realized I didn't know how to breathe. I didn't know how to make my heart pump. I didn't know how to make myself think. I'm like, I'm dying. That's what I thought. I'm dying. And so I'm panicking like, what do I do? And all I heard was, what you mean, shh? I'm dying. Call 911. But I can't even call. I'm like, oh, Lord, I'm dying. I said, shh. I said, okay, shh. In that moment, I was sustained. I didn't die. But it was a lesson in that. Now, the story that I'm sharing about my personal life, I need you to really listen to the story so you can understand where these initiations happen to a person on an individual level. Our physical world say it's one thing, but how do they know that it's whatever they say it is? I'm here contending that this is an example of an initiation, period. So, I'm going through this experience, and I come to the mind, my rational mind, I'm dying. But I didn't never imagine death like this. Let me stop. About a month ago, I shared here in one of my live streams or videos that I ended up finding this young girl talking about she was, since she was younger, she had been dealing with some medical problem. I forgot what she has going on. It was ongoing. She did have over 30-something surgeries. And she used to imagine what death would be like. And I told y'all she was the first person and the only person I heard describe this same thing when death really came, right? And so y'all can check out. I don't even remember what video it is. I think I put her in one of my playlists or something like that, something to watch, because that was all awesome. And I was like, I don't understand why people don't talk about this kind of stuff. I guess it's scary. It's not popular. It causes you to lose your viewers or subscribers. But I think that it's an important subject matter to cover because it has to do with who we are and our transition between worlds and dimensions. And that experience itself opened up a level of consciousness to me. I was initiated into another level of consciousness while in this physical world. It wasn't pure because I'm still here, but it showed me how our bodies, we have nothing to do with these involuntary functions. And when these voluntary functions, they voluntarily do it. These voluntary functions stop by commandment of a force that's greater than ourselves. Our physical vessels and our egos don't know what to do. And it's painful and it's shocking. That is the consciousness that I obtained. Not only that, in that consciousness, what came with that consciousness is this awareness of what a baby experiences when it comes through the world, through that tight canal. This information was added to me during this experience. So I finished talking about this experience that I had. And so I heard and it starts to minister to me. What starts to minister to me? That which is greater than myself. The experience ministers to me. And it tells me, I got this. I caused this to happen. This has nothing to do with you. This is what I give to you. Understand it. Understand it. Understand when you come into this world and you take your first breath. Understand what I'm giving over to you. Now, as long as this took, I should have been dropped dead, but I was sustained, just like I was when I was in the lower realm. And so I listened, just there, having all of these. It almost felt like I don't know, like every cell in my body had gone combust and it was on fire, but yet they still stayed within their own space, within their own boundaries, everywhere in my joints. And I'm alive. I'm awake, y'all. This is not imagination or anything like that. And so I'm like, oh my God. After it ministered to me, not to be so dramatic, after it ministered to me, it released me. And I came back to normal. But excuse my language, my French, psychologically, I'm fucked up. I'm like, oh my God, I was dying. I call my kids, call 911 motherfucking one. I'm dying. I'm having a heart attack or something. You know what I'm saying? They call 911. The EMS come out. And I'm sitting up fine. I was fine at the time. After the ministry, I was fine. It went from not having it to the ministry to not having it. But I'm not happy. My ego is offended. I thought I was dying. Call it EMS. EMS come. You know, they do their preliminary check. They don't see nothing. Oh, you taking me. And they take me to the hospital. I'm in there. They trying to put me out the next day. I ain't going nowhere. You know, number one, y'all not going. Those kind of experiences, you can't share with people. Because they're ruled by what? The consciousness of this physical realm. Period. All a person will say, you're fat, you're out of shape, you need to exercise, you need to be healthy, a vegetarian, a vegan, maybe you should just fast. Well, you probably got clogged arteries. When the whole thing, after I cussed and fussed in that hospital and they did every test, nuclear up, down, inside, because I raised hell, y'all gonna make, because my whole point is that I'm in the physical world too. Therefore, I am also within the consciousness. So I'm like, it got to be something medically wrong. You know, and so I'm pushing the envelope because this time, with this experience, you're gonna make me be able to see clearly by using all of your science, everything you know. You're gonna call in every expert. You can look up from my Rudy to my Tootie, because you got to confirm to me that this was truly a divine experience, which I knew it was because I was sustained and I was being ministered to. But that's not something that's acceptable, acknowledged in this physical world of consciousness. I knew at the time that I was being exposed to another realm, a dimension that offered me additional consciousness and awareness. But I was like, I got to try this. I'm at this point in time in my evolution or in my spiritual walk. I just told you, I said, it got to be checked. It has to be checked. I know what I'm talking about. It has to be checked. I got to be refined. You know, I got to be sure that I'm on the right path. That is an example of what took place. So anyway, after I cussed and fuss, and I've been in the hospital 2-3 days, eating up all the hospital food, running my mouth on their phone, laid back, my feet kicked up. They finally put me out. Everything was clean bill of health. No nothing. No qual arteries. No sign of heart attack. No sign of stroke. They did every test that was related to all the symptoms I told them about. And, you know, and they couldn't find anything, which I knew they wouldn't if it was truly a spiritual initiation. You know, initiation from spirit. Doctors, but they don't even touch patients anymore, really. My observation. They won't. And I always tell my kids, you cannot go to the doctor and let them just doctor you. You got to go in there and you got to be the doctor. Like we go to the therapist. We go to the therapist. The therapist asking us questions. We the therapist. When you go to the doctor, you got to tell them what you want. Be like, this bothering me, and this is what you should do. Most doctors had that. Yep, okay, how you know that? But then there's others that's real egotistical. I'm the doctor. Okay, was you gonna do that? You know what I'm saying? Why did I have to say it to you? Why you didn't say it to me? You say, I'm a smart behind. But yeah, you have to know yourself, both physically and spiritually. And you got to go walking in these doctors acting like you and talking like you got some sense or something. No. Understand what again, this consciousness. If you go into that arena, we talking about medical and being a patient, and you just walking up in there dumb as shit, showing no level of consciousness. Remember, the person that does have consciousness about medical things, it's up to their discretion if they if they're rising to the highest expression of Capricorn, knowing that their works matter and have an impact upon themselves, their world, as well as someone else's world and or spirit. It's up to them. But when you yourself are also partaking in that same level of consciousness, like as a doctor or a surgeon, and you show a level of awareness about what it encompasses encompass, then you can interact. Remember, there's 7.5 billion plus people in the world interacting. We are here to refine each other. You can have a social exchange with that doctor that allows them to allows them to know that you are in the same level of consciousness as them, and they are called to rise to the highest expression of Capricorn. Because who's the doctor? Am I the doctor? Or are you the doctor? Hmm? You know, and so I think it makes sense. The power of touch is healing. They know it, and it is. I got a long time ago, Dr. Princess. I can remember getting a message about the power of touch and healing and things like that. And it has been. I've tried that as well, and that's probably another ministry I'll end up going back to practice. I don't know when life calls me to do so, the gentle touch, the gentle touch. Like I'm gonna use that, the power of healing. Even though touch does heal, I'm not denying that. 100% true. Um, there's another power associated with touch. Like an example with the root chakra and the releasing, you often see things are inside of us that are natural, instinctive. And one thing that we are aware of, even if it's just on a subconscious level, is that touch does heal. It has power and magic. That is a part of a consciousness in this realm. And that consciousness has so much information, but we only tap it into parts of that information and not all the information relative to that consciousness. But when a person begins to transition from life to death, and it's the separation of the spirit and soul from the body, the touch settles the physical down so that the spirit can, freely go. The spirit is not affected, not in that manner. The power of touch at that point of the transition is crucial, as it comforts and is it's the comforter to the physical vessel and the ego itself, because the ego is interested in being what? Acknowledged, appreciated, and satisfied. So that's a good one right there, Dr. Princess. The power of touch, the power of touch, amazing. We might have to go in that in depth more. Maybe you can handle that. You make videos, right? Don't you make videos going to the power of touch, the magical touch and healing and things like that? That's an awesome category to go into. And so I think the last thing, I'm not going. I'll say this here for another time. Yeah, because it goes deep. Because I think I want to actually break down the sun, moon, and rising relative to this astrological information in the upcoming year. But what I would like to say, so I don't forget, is that I'm an amateur astrologer, but I'm fairly very serious minded, and sometimes to the point it can be negative and a downer. So I don't want to be a downer to anyone that may view my videos, my messages, my work. But I do like to deal in reality. I don't like to get caught slipping, those kind of things. I don't like being put in circumstances and situations that I didn't foresee coming or hadn't anticipated. And so the works that I do, I really come from that perspective of trying to make sure that I'm ahead of the game, that all the terms and conditions are on the up and up, and those kind of things. It's of course hard to keep up. And I'm not just talking about relative to astrology and things. I'm talking about just in real life, period, in the flow. Because I've had a lot of hard knocks in my life due to my ignorance. Um, and so I bring that up to let you know, again, I'm not perfect. I can't say that 100% that my, message is absolutely correct. Number one, I'm dependent on somebody else's calculations and definitions of the various astrological alignments and different things like that. Then they can be interpreted in so many ways. But what I am saying to you is what I see is that there is it seems like a high possibility that, again, we will have a Great Depression. something similar to or greater than the Great Depression of the 1930s. And it looked like it may beginning in January 2020. And my question was, how could that it be sparked? Is there another government shutdown? You know, that comes and is extended. On top of that, are there tax reforms that would have? These are just my guesses. Tax reforms that will not serve the people but put them in further hardship. Will the government or Uncle Sam, the IRS, call on people's debts and things like that? Will there be will the people that have corporations, businesses that offer credit cards, credit lines and things like that, be told to call in on those debts right away? Will they increase like the finance charges? I'm talking about things that throw people's lives into difficulty. Is that what is commencing in January? So I bring all that up. What's happening? Will there be welfare reforms and things like that, where these different programs are chopped in half or done away with overnight all of a sudden? Because many people, remember, the higher ups think of us as sheeple, people that follow and that don't have the same level of intelligence nor expertise as they do, and therefore view us as subordinate. There are a few people in these offices that try to offset them in their evil works. That entrepreneurial energy of the Capricorn that is self-serving and self-seeking and very intentional. And they're not getting anywhere because they're outnumbered. So I say all of that ranting from me to you. I say, hey, don't spend too much during the holidays if you celebrate the holidays. Just in case I interpret it right, really. Make sure that if you behind, do your best to pay your bills up and get ahead, at least break even. If you can get a little ahead, get a little ahead. Replenish your cabinets and your dry goods. Get a list now of all the soup kitchens and churches that offer commodities. I am. If I got to be in line, I'll be in line. If you can, hey, make amends with them folks you done fell out with. You know what I'm saying? But make amends. Learn to collaborate with one another. Because I could really see, but then I'm a drama queen. My ascendancy, I'm a drama queen. So I might be just exaggerating this. And that's what this realm, this level of consciousness depends on. That a person like me, I'm a drama queen again. Tells the message in such a dramatic way that nobody believes it. And then when it really ends up happening, people aren't aware that it's happening because that it might not be happening to them. All of these things that we will face are unique to us. What holds me down ain't what holds you down. And because you're being held down a way that is foreign or strange to me, I don't understand it, like it don't even exist. It's something wrong with you. See, that's a part of the illusion that exists here in this physical realm. Illusion. And one's ability to deceive another is also a part of this level of consciousness. Now, I'm just letting y'all know, take care of yourself, get ready. You have words of wisdom. What is that? Is that prose provocative? Maybe provocative words of wisdom? Hope they help. If not, just throw me into a sane asylum. Eventually. Old folk on whatever you got to do to get rid of me. But right now I'm on here. The internet bill is paid and I got a computer and I'm on here. You can't get rid of me until all of that is gone. So, the last thing, and I'm going to let y'all go. I'm going to say the rest of my rambling rant for another video. I'm going to talk about how you must earn your ascension. Your ascension is not going to be given to you. Let me see, how can I say this? I ain't going to be just handed over to you. You must be refined in the fire. Those roots must be burnt up. You must release them. Over time, I don't know how much time. We talking about millennials, centuries, decades, whatever. Over time, the roots will be uprooted. Whether they're burnt up, you release them, whatever. They coming up. We talking about the metaphysical, the spiritual. They coming up. Um, Remember, we are dealing with or underneath something that's immeasurable. Time doesn't exist for it. It just is. Always has been, always will be. It's immeasurable. So we got all the time in the world. Guess what? Time really don't exist. We got all the time in the world. So eventually, those roots are gonna come up, and it's whatever by any way that needs to happen. Remember, the absolute embodies or it embodies all consciousness. It is consciousness itself. So by any means necessary. By any means necessary. Only limits to what we will go through. Ooh, this is scary. The only limits to what we will go through. Ooh, people have opened up other dimensions. Is limited to the consciousness of this realm. But then that's another thing I want to talk about. And I got to put it here because I don't want to make a whole video about it. Talking about dimensions. And I didn't put it here, but I got information about it. And I done got this information off and on throughout my life for years. And so I just kind of this is something now I'm real confused about, which makes sense because I had problems in math and stuff. And so Divinity coming to me on this, it ain't made it no easier. Let me say, it ain't made it no damn bit easier. What you give out is what you receive from the universe. Oh, positive. Oh, positive. I see. Your words of wisdom beneficial on life. Oh, thank you very much. Hopefully they are. Hopefully we'll see. We'll see. That's what we ain't big enough to see. We ain't big enough to see it all. That's what I know for sure. And when I talk about dimensions, it was something, see, I still ain't got it. See, I don't know what God want from me, Divinity want from me, because I ain't no good in math and stuff. But you just think about in math, when you start dealing with, what was that? That doggone fire. It's a new one. It's a new one. I don't know what happened to the old one. This new one, this one fat. The other one must have started there somewhere. In math, and I forget when this is introduced, but they introduced at some point in time a number line, and the number lines were either on a x-axis or y-axis. I think it's the x-axis that is first dimensional. The y-axis create the second dimension. But let me go back to if I'm getting it right, the x-axis number line that lays flat. That x-axis, you can think of it mathematically, you can think of it on paper, or you can think of it if you have the ability to, I think it's called, envision it in this physical realm. The flat line embodies a set information of consciousness. It has a lot of information. But all the information that it possesses is relative to itself. That's the consciousness. The extent of the consciousness. Then we throw the y-axis in there, if I'm correct. Y'all know I was a mess of math. We throw the y-axis in there, and now that is another level of consciousness. Together, they create an overall consciousness that consists of the X information and the Y information. And that creates the two-dimensional level of consciousness and all that it consists of. We're dealing with metaphysics now. Now, just being born into this physical realm, we can easily be aware of the information that is offered by those two planes easily, because we are above it, looking into it, we could say. But then there's another axis, and I think the axis is called Z. And Z begins to lean so you can get these other angles. And these other angles is what creates the third dimension that we sit in, right? And that is the realm in which we exist. And so that Z axis brings information, its own level of consciousness. Partnering the X axis with the Y axis with the Z axis creates the third dimensional consciousness and all that it consists of. Those are the rules. That's all you can see. You can tap in, you can use. But there are so many other levels and dimensions that exist, but we don't have the information. Then there is, tell me about it, because you know I ain't no good at it. That's the basics. It's so basic. See, let me try. The powers that be are experts, scientists, and different things like this. Our physics and chemists are working in other realms, other planes of dimension, in which those planes have information that the normal Jane and Joe have no understanding of, no comprehension of. You can't have comprehension until you're in it. You got to get into the plane first in order to be able to comprehend it, to begin to see its contents as well as its boundaries. And so what I'm saying, these people that have relieved the high level of mastery, a primary example of such a person could be one of our geniuses. We're guaranteed that the genius is genius because they have tapped into these alternate planes of existence that we can't even see, we can't comprehend. I can't even describe it. How does, well, I know we didn't do fourth dimension, but let's go 5 and 6 dimensions. I'm gonna get lost, so I'm gonna try to cut it dry. I'm gonna get lost. That we cannot even phantom, as we can't even phantom that absolute energy has become. But even lower, 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, we can't even phantom those dimensions because our consciousness is too limited. Because our consciousness is framed or locked in to its perimeters. It's coming out of it. Let me try to make it make sense. I'm going to stop there. Because the reason why I bring up math and science and physics, because these are ways to begin to see outside of our boundaries, to pierce through, in order to start plucking the information out of other dimensions so that we have some of that consciousness. So that realm has to open up to us so we can see. Now, in those realms, I'm going to give you an example. Now, somebody pierced into it already. That's how we are aware. I'm talking about, like, becoming invisible. The consciousness to being invisible exists in another realm. The consciousness of time travel exists in another realm. We don't understand. We don't have the information. We don't have the comprehension. We don't have the rules or instructions to being invisible. That's an example. But people are piercing through physics and science and different forms of science to do so. Again, leaving all that do not understand this science, these type of sciences, as ways to dip into other planes. They even doing it now on a microbolic level, where they cutting and splicing in and stuff and changing it on a metabolic level. That's moving into a dimension. That consciousness is smaller than ours, so we can go down in there and work with it. But they're also going up into and expanding in the consciousness, layer after layer after layer, building upon their consciousness and therefore their awareness. They are ascending. But then they have this negative expression, oh, that's bringing hell or heaven to earth, whole nother level. Not gonna go there, gonna digress. But why do I bring this up? This is the last statement I'm gonna put out here. Looking at the astrological energies for January 2020, it says the reason why, and I haven't, remember we didn't go over the whole chart, I just looked at the first house. Yes, I have deciphered all of the houses and the information. And I only talked about the first house here. Most likely I'm going to do an in-depth look at 2020, the onset of commencement of 2020 in another video. But by the time I got through interpreting the message, it also gave an explanation about why we will be going through what is scheduled to happen. And it is because our consciousness is limited. Humanity, or the people that create humanity, have not been able to burst out of or to get through the boundaries of our consciousness. We are subordinate to the information, therefore the consciousness of the three-dimensional and below realms. And because we haven't broke through, because we don't understand the importance of ascending, breaking through, gaining additional consciousness and therefore awareness, we have co-created our future upcoming events. I thank you for coming here to Can Angels Fly, Tarot, and more once again, and talking about the 101s of Ascension. Hopefully, me trying to articulate such spiritual things or metaphysical things wasn't too confusing. I try not to be too confusing. And I do thank you for allowing me to take this opportunity to share my findings and my level of understanding or consciousness, as well as to record the information. Thank you for your feedback. Now, remember, if you're ever interested in ordering your own personal tarot reading, just contact me at my email. My email is canangelsfly1@gmail.com. Please like, share. If you haven't already, subscribe. Make sure to tap the bell. You might be noticed when I go live. And if you'd like to offer me any financial support, just locate my PayPal me and Cash App link below, or Cash App link below this live stream or any video I make. Now, have a nice rest of the day. Bye.